join us as well. Chiefs, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Anong balita, Ami?
Well, kung gusto niyong happy, may isang araw pa kayong dumalaw sa Dolomite Beach.
Okay. Yun ba yung definition mo ng happy?
Kaya bago tayo dumiretso sa yung saka yung mga nagtitinda ng paputok sa Bukawi, maligaya sila kasi tumaas daw yung sales nila. Of course, hindi yan magugustuhan.
Tumaas kasi yung presyo nila.
Pero doon sa Bagyo, bad news pa rin, siyempre. Naghihirap pa rin. Tataas yung mga presyo.
At saka sa health front, ang Philippine Hospitals Association, we've been talking about this for practically the entire pandemic, pero now mukhang totohan nila. I mean, nagbabanta sila ng 5-day holiday from PhilHealth starting sa
January
bagong
1.
taon.
Hanggang
Oo nga,
5.
saka yung ina-advise sa kanila ng PhilHealth, yung death credit, hindi ba yung din yung ipinopropose dati? Ayaw naman nila eh.
Oo nga. Well,
So mukhang
anyway.
Ayun, nasa health na tayo.
Anyway, bottom line, exactly. Heading into toward final week of this year, we're still talking about public health, of course. So let's begin tonight with Dr. Maricar Limpin, President of the Philippine College of Physicians, and Dr. Ronchin Solante, a member of the Vaccine Expert Panel. Good evening, Drs. Limpin and Solante. And welcome, Lucy Cruz Valdez.
Oh, happy birthday.
Na.
Happy birthday. Kala mo, ha?
Hello, good evening. Thank you.
Okay.
Good
So,
evening.
are we starting with Dr. Salate? Dr. Salate
Good evening,
muna.
doctors. Si
Ay,
Dr. Limpin, dyan na.
andyan na rin ba si Dr. Limpin?
Yeah, she was here a while ago.
Okay. Well, anyway, Dr. Salate, let's just start with the basics. We're about to end the year, but let's start with the basics and let's flame it for 2022 with Omicron there and everybody considering now boosters, where to get boosters and so on. What do people need to do? What can they still do in this final week and heading into the first week of a new year to go at least into 2022, to go into a new year feeling more secure?
Yeah. Thank you for that, no? And I think our behavior now should be preparing for the Omicron variant. Whether we like it or not, there is a possibility that the Omicron variant can cause significant surge of cases that has been already experienced by other countries now. And our government, the Department of Health, is also preparing not only for this Omicron variant that hopefully will not come, no, but we should be being proactive with that. The primary preparation is really the vaccination, and we are encouraging particularly the vulnerable population, the A2, the A3, and the A1 should get the booster doses offered by the government. That's one. And we continue to encourage everyone to really practice the safe or the health protocols. Okay, and I think on the part of the local government, that's what we've been doing in encouraging the local government to continue the surveillance, continue isolating those with symptoms, encourage testing and isolation and quarantine. So these are the three very important aspects. But last, I should not forget this, no? We should also strengthen the healthcare facility. The healthcare facility forms an important part of how we will respond to this Omicron variant. And that in itself, healthcare facility should be stockpiling PPEs, including medications or medicines for COVID-19.
Doc, you've repeatedly said that, that a surge is inevitable. I suppose the question lang is whether it's going to be a surge by Delta or a surge by Omicron. Is a surge by Omicron also inevitable or not necessarily?
We are preparing for that, no? Because there are already, although there are only 4 cases that has been detected based on the Philippine Genome Center, but if the uptick of the cases continue to rise, then my thought on this, we will have an interface either with a Delta and an Omicron variant based on what the behavior of the people are doing during this holiday. And I think for now, it's still the Delta as the dominant variant, but we cannot discount the possibility also of an Omicron variant-driven surge.
Do we have new information on Omicron? Because we know it to be more transmissible, up to 8 times more, tama ba? And we also know that it's not as virulent as Delta. But now that we're getting into the 4th Omicron case in the country, and reports have it that the husband of that 4th Omicron case was tested negative for COVID, no? I'm just wondering whether that was a one-off, or in general, the information that we have on Omicron is still the same, and also based on the experiences of other countries like the UK, the US, where the Omicron has spread already. May bago po bang impormasyon?
Yeah, Lucia, no, correct. No, so it remained that way, that this virus is really highly transmissible, and it can be 2 or 3 times, 4 times more transmissible than Delta, and that has been the experience with other countries, including South Korea. No? And that's why most of these countries are now into the booster doses for protection of the population. In terms of the symptomatology, comparing the symptoms, the clinical course of those who got Delta and Omicron variant, we still can say that even with the number of cases that has been experienced with other countries like UK or US, most of the cases are still in those with mild to moderate. No, but again, as we always emphasize that if you have more cases and mild and moderate, then that can still be an important factor where healthcare can still be overwhelmed with the number of cases, even if it's not severe or critical.
Doc,
What do you think accounts for, sorry, pahabol lang. What do you think accounts for the fact that for the 4 at least identified Omicron cases, parang walang nahawa, no? They went through quarantine quietly and there was no transmission. Was that because of the vaccination, or was that because of the quarantine protocols? What would you attribute that?
It's mainly our quarantine protocols, no? Because even before that, we don't have the Omicron variant, and it has been reported in other countries. The IATF, the quarantine procedure, has already been in place, and it has not changed. 72 hours prior, they should be tested, and then on the 5th day, they should be tested, and they will be released on treatment or quarantine facility, and home quarantine will only be continued for a total of 14 days for those with asymptomatic to mild symptoms. And most of these 4 cases that we have are mostly asymptomatic. They were only found out to be positive based on the test that we did here in the Philippines on the 5th day of their quarantine in the facility.
Doc, nagpa-booster ako kahapon with my household members. And ang naririnig ko doon ng mga tanong ano daw bang mas maganda yung mga tao? Tinatanong nila, ano ba yung maganda, yung homologous daw ba o heterologous, yung same booster brand or magkaiba? Ano ba yung mas maganda daw na combination?
Okay, no, so our messaging stays the same, no? Na kung ano man yung 3rd dose na binibigay natin, there are 2 options there. You can get the homologous or you can get the heterologous, no? And based on the data, for example, heterologous with mRNA vaccine like Pfizer and Moderna are so far, these are the vaccines that had the higher neutralizing antibody compared to the other ones. No? But there are new data now with AstraZeneca and also with J&J, no? The other day and today that with booster for those who had received primary vaccine series, and giving an Astra or a J&J also has a very good protection against the Omicron variant.
So kung karamihan kasi sa atin, Sinovac ang nakuha. Ano yung mas magandang brand na gusto? Kasi marami ko narinig, gusto nila Sinovac pa rin.
Yeah, The homologous Sinovac booster is still a good option, particularly those who really want the Sinovac because of the less adverse event. So the antibody, neutralizing antibody is still good enough to protect us from these variants of concern. And I think that's an option that we were also recommending in the vaccination booster table.
Okay, I want to bring in Dr. Limpin. Dr. Limpin, year-ender question ulit to, especially as president of the Philippine College of Physicians. You have Omicron. Nobody's calling this a surge, but obviously the numbers have been going up, 400 plus today. We usually say Tuesday, abangan nyo, mas mababa na konti yan, but itong Tuesday is 400 plus. If this trend continues, the other day we were talking about doubling. Now we're looking at tripling. From the low base that we had a couple of weeks ago. And then throwing ko na rin dito, PhilHealth and the Private Hospitals Association threatening a 5-day holiday from PhilHealth. But on balance, as we enter 2022, kamusta po ang moral and outlook ng ating mga frontliners?
Okay. I think ang mga frontliners right now at this particular time, mas medyo mataas naman ang moral. Well, primarily because mas mababa ang cases of COVID-19. So in a way, parang nagkaroon kami ng respite nitong mga a month, for at least a month now. And this has actually given us the needed energy. Parang na-regain na back namin yung energy namin. So that's why we're a little bit happy, and then of course medyo nakakasama namin ng pamilya rin namin. So that's why I think the morale overall is high. Although we do feel very quite sad doon sa nangyari with the typhoon, kasi many of our colleagues were also affected, the houses actually were destroyed. And now, right now, they are saying that like in some parts of Cebu and Siargao, I think 3 months pa bago magkaroon ng kuryente. So for some of our colleagues, I can say na medyo it's really a sad time for them, But and then of course itong PhilHealth, I don't think that the issue on PhilHealth will greatly affect the healthcare workers, but I think it will greatly affect the entire Filipino people. Why? Because talagang ang affected ng decision na ito ng mga private hospitals will be the Filipinos, particularly those who cannot afford to spend for their healthcare services. Kami kasi we are at the end of the PhilHealth issue. But syempre, I think I have Dr. Solante will agree with me. Many of our patients whom we have been taking care of for the past almost two years now, Ako, in particular, I have not actually received a single centavo from PhilHealth for taking care of COVID patients, So talagang malaking problem yun sa PhilHealth. And I think the PhilHealth should really face up to their obligation. Kasi kawawa rin naman yung mga liliit na ospital na kung hindi sila ma-reimburse, they might probably fold up. And that will, again, affect the Filipino people.
But looking at the immediate term, kung matuloy yung 5-day holiday na yan, sa inyo magpupuntahan sa public hospitals, yung mga walang pambayad. Kasi they will have to shell out money in place of PhilHealth. Well, then again, it's only for 5 days. Pero
pero handa naman kaming lahat ng mga government hospitals to, take care of all of the people who will be coming to us, So kaming mga nasa government, I think we are prepared. In fact, we have already been preparing even for yung sinasabi ni Dr. Solante, the possible surge in the following immediately following this holiday season. So we are already preparing for that. We're taking stocks of PPEs and also the other medicines, especially the newer antivirals. We're trying to stock up, no, our hospitals to ensure that the Filipinos will be taken care of when they come to us.
Well, for both doctors, we are seeing record highs in new cases in the US, in UK, in Australia, in France. New highs, talagang new highs in terms of new cases. But I'm not familiar with their numbers as far as hospitalization is concerned. Kung ganun kataas yung new cases nila, proportional ba yung adjustments or movements doon sa hospitalization? Considering that it's probably Omicron.
I would like to probably answer that because I've had some talks with some colleagues, no, in the US and even in the UK. So they are also seeing a lot of patients that are being hospitalized. So talagang this new rise in numbers are really quite high, and hindi talaga maiiwasan when there are really a high number of cases. You can expect also a greater number of people who will actually be admitted in the hospitals, and also marami-rami na rin sila nakikita na medyo severe, no, case of COVID-19 even with the Omicron variant.
What do you think accounts for, bakit po kaya tayo, okay, I guess my question is this, how should the typical Filipino view the rise in the number of cases right now in the Philippines? Even if you say that relative to other countries, mababa pa rin tayo and we're still in the same zone, how should we process the fact that it rose this December? Should we just say, parang last year rin lang yan, and or are we following a pattern where we expect a surge come February? How should we frame it?
I think, Jean, ikaw muna.
Okay, sige. Thank you, Maricar. Now, Lucy, you have to look at this way, This is a variant of concern, Last year, December, the threat started in January when we have the Delta variant, okay? And we called it the UK variant, Now we have the Omicron variant. So it's the same cycle. When you have a new variant of concern, and this one is a heavily mutated variant and it's even more transmissible, then it doesn't mean na konti lang yung kaso natin comparing to other countries na, okay na tayo, medyo luwagan na natin, That should not be our behavior. We have already experienced 2 surges the past for this year, the March and the August, because of the Delta variant, Now sasabihin natin, bakunado naman tayo. Not even that reason na bakunado tayo, because even if you are vaccinated with the primary vaccine series, you can still get the infection, you can still develop the symptoms. So we need to be proactive, and that's why the government is really preparing for this. Maski sasabihin pang the apat ang kaso natin, because it will be too late if we will not be prepared for this, and that's why the rollout for the booster and the primary vaccine series should now be strictly implemented, at saka siguro including those areas na merong calamities, kailangan talagang magbabakuna na ulit tayo.
Dr. Solante, Dr. Solante, I just want to pick your brains on what are some insights and takeaways on travel, particularly coming in by plane, di ba? Yung 4 cases natin, we have to stress, wala, as DOHS, wala pa naman community transmission, so itong 4 na to, all came in from abroad. We also have to stress, if we get that 5th case confirmed, mag-asawa to, so talaga magkasama sila, no? But given that, kasi ako, layman, ignorant, I'm thinking, nako, ang dami niyang kasama sa eroplano, siguro ang daming And yet, we've been monitoring this with every case, paisa-isa lang over the past weeks. So what does that suggest about Omicron, and what does that suggest about air travel in particular?
So that means that air travel is the potential possible source of entry of the Omicron variant, And that has been also the case with other countries, and that's why they strictly implement these mga restrictions and strict implementation of quarantine procedures. And that's what we're doing now. And that's the reason why we were able to detect these 4 individuals. So, I mean, when you have this entry of other people coming from different countries, then that's where the critical part there is to really screen them, test them before they will be integrated in the community. We have learned our lesson with Delta. When we implemented the travel restriction and all those protocol of quarantine, nakalusot na, meron ng community transmission, and that was too late. No? So again, we've learned our lesson with Delta. We should not be committing the same mistake we had done in previous months.
Yes, Dr. Salate, I'm sorry, just quickly lang. But my question is actually coming from the other side. That personally, I'm pleasantly and relieved to see na, hindi yung tipong sama-sama kayo sa aeroplano. My question is, what is it about, what can we take away from on safety on the other hand, given that, there are so many flights that come in, and yet we're only reporting, one confirmed case, every week or so. I mean, what do we have the numbers on and any insights on, notwithstanding the threats to Omicron and heightened alert, do we have insights and data on the safety and security of travel and within the vehicle itself?
Airplane is one of the safest in terms of ventilation and air control. No, when you are in that airplane, you have a negative pressure. No, so that's one thing positive with that. No, second is that before you will be admitted to travel, you have to have your RT-PCR negative, okay? And you have the symptom screening. So all of these measures are very important because when you are traveling 24 hours, 16 hours in that particular plane, then there's a possibility of longer interaction. Aside from a very good environment, it's difficult to really control. No? But again, that's just part of how we control during travel. No? The more important part there is when you are traveling and you don't have the symptoms. But what about when you are already landed and you have the symptoms? That's the critical part of the traveler. That's why we have to implement the quarantine while they will be observing the traveler 5 days in the quarantine facility.
Dr. Solante, may nagsasabi naman, seeing what's happening in South Africa, mukha daw mahina yung, hindi siya virulent like Delta, yung Omicron. And they're saying na ito na daw yung umpisa. Are we seeing the start of the end of COVID? Kasi magiging endemic na daw kapag lumabas siyang ganyang klaseng variant. Is that a valid observation among infectious disease experts? Tama ba yun, or is that just wishful thinking?
No, we have to take this into consideration. The experience in South Africa may not be the same experience as what UK or US has as of this moment, no? Although they claim that most of their cases are mild, but if you look at the data in US, as what Dr. Maricar mentioned, no, na marami pa rin na hospital because of the enormous number of cases compared to South Africa. And that's also what's happening in UK, in Italy, and some parts of Europe. No? So magkaiba kasi ang ang experience nan, hindi talaga natin ma-generalize yan na pag ganito. Now, if you're going to apply that in the Philippines with a healthcare setting na hindi ganun ka, although okay naman ang healthcare setting natin, but when you look at our population, our density, it's really too dense, especially in Metro Manila, then there will be, we cannot just say na, ito yung experience namin sa South Africa, mild. So we cannot just be complacent about these mild cases.
Pero we talked to Father Nick Austriaco last night. Sabi niya, ang possible daw na nangyayari sa atin is similar to what's happening in Indonesia and I think Japan, na meron ng Omicron pero hindi siya nagkakalat. And ang isa niyang teorya dahil daw nagko-combine yung vaccination natin with the two surges this year sa atin na mataas yung cases, kaya dumami yung nagkaroon ng natural immunity combined with the vaccination. Kaya hindi ganun kataas ang ng Omicron. Is that also a valid observation?
Well, that's a valid reason because when you have a natural infection plus vaccine, then you also have double or triple neutralizing antibody. No? So that's an important part of how we look at immunity when we have patients not only vaccinated but also being exposed and at the same time already vaccinated.
Dr. Limpin, I was going to ask you, businessmen, particularly si Presidential Advisor Joey Concepcion has said na dapat daw kung sakaling magka-surge ay wag na raw dapat mag-lockdown, in general lockdown, dapat daw talagang granular pa rin. What's your reaction to this? Do you agree?
I think kailangan lang mukha naman yung granular lockdown can actually work, no? Kasi I think kung saan yung area na mas marami yung cases, then the lockdown should actually be done or instituted in that particular area. But I think the more important thing that we need to do right now is to make sure that we will not experience the same surge that we had for this year, 2021. So habang maaga pa, tama ang sinasabi ni Dr. Solante that yung control natin sa borders, which means yung mga coming in na travelers from other countries, we have to ensure that all of these people will actually be quarantined and then retested even if they already had a test prior to their flight. Kailangan pagdating dito, we need to retest them again and make sure that they tested negative and then they continue their quarantine at home. So that is actually the good way of really minimizing transmission of the infection. But I'd like to actually say, people might think that we only have 4 cases of Omicron. But I think I'd like to point out that many now of our people do not want to be tested anymore. Yung mga RT-PCR. Why? Because many of them cannot actually afford to pay for the test. And then second, natatakot sila, They have this fear that ayaw nilang malaman kung meron silang COVID or wala, So marami-raming hindi natetest. And what I fear, those who did not undergo testing might actually have COVID. And the problem there is hindi natin alam, But for us doctors, we already tell them kahit wala pang test for them to isolate or quarantine themselves to make sure na hindi naman kumalat yung infection.
Doctors, I'd imagine that the DOH has been doing or modeling scenarios in case na Omicron does get in and start community transmission. Can you tell us about these scenarios? Are you free to do that? And what we have to do to head this off? Doc Ronjin, baka may nalalaman kayo
Okay.
na pag-uusapan dyan.
Yeah, so the preparation here is that when you have community transmission, the most important part there is really the part of isolating those who are positive and contact tracing, as what we have experienced before. And these are very critical steps when we want to contain the transmission in the community. And that's where the lockdowns or the granular lockdowns will start. So important also is the testing capacity of the local government unit, the ability to contact, trace, and at the same time do active surveillance for those who have been infected and who have been exposed to the positive. That's always the first step. Second, if you have symptoms, mild symptoms, then this should not be brought to the hospital. The local government should provide like a telemedicine or a clinic that will provide some guidance on how to go about with mild symptoms, and that's where the temporary treatment facility can be an important component there before making these people go to the hospital, because as much as possible, it's always protecting the healthcare facility that will be overwhelmed. Hindi naman pwedeng lahat ng mga mild cases pupunta doon sa hospital, It should be managed in the local government. The only time that they will be referred when they have moderate or severe, particularly those with comorbidities or those who are immunocompromised. So that's always the initial step and very vital in controlling community transmission. And of course, the vaccination. We always in emphasize the importance of vaccination and booster for the vulnerable population.
Dr. Salate, something that Dr. Limpin mentioned, we keep talking about vaccination and contact tracing mahalaga, but between that, of course, the testing is very, very important, especially as we reopen the economy, as people gauge their own safety as well as their own confidence. But to be direct about it, how do we bring down the cost? How do we make it more convenient? How do we take away the friction and the barriers so that people can just be testing more easily, more conveniently, more confidently even?
So currently, testing is driven by symptom, no? And you have the barangay. So if you have symptoms, you can coordinate with your barangay, and then barangay has access to these referral laboratories that can also offer free COVID testing as long as you are symptomatic or you have been exposed to a positive confirmed, no? Yun naman ang ano natin kasama naman yan, no? Now in some areas na talagang ayaw nila doon sa barangay kasi minsan may mabagal daw or something like that, they can access also some private laboratories, no? But again, that involved also expenses, no? Kasi hindi naman libre yun pag mga private laboratories. So that in itself are in place, and it's just a matter na i-enhance natin ang awareness sa testing. Kasi kung walang magte-test, hindi natin alam kung sino yung mga nag-positive, and we don't have data kung gaano nakataas ang cases natin.
Yeah, but to that point, and this is going to be the last question, Dr. Limpin, just to follow up on that. Kaya na sabi ni Dr. Solante, and I agree, testing here is driven by symptoms. Di ba? May nararamdaman ako, kailangan ako magpa-test. But in other countries, testing is also driven by agenda. Di ba? Parang gusto ko mag-travel. Meron ako pupuntahang meeting, merong restaurant na pupuntahan ko, and the policy is kailangan may negative test on top of may ano. So it's that point that I want to ask. Kahit walang symptoms, how do we make, and really the remaining barrier for all of us is the cost, and also the fact that there are only designated places where I can go. No? So how do we make it a bit more ubiquitous, a bit more convenient, and a bit more and more affordable, so that it's not driven necessarily just by symptoms, especially if Omicron is not as deadly as we expected. A lot of cases can fall through the cracks if we allow it to remain just driven by symptoms and not by social agenda.
Actually, it's not just by symptoms, no, that people get tested, no. Those people who were exposed to positive COVID-19 patients, definitely they will have to be tested. But the testing must be done at the appropriate time. Hindi yun agad-agad. Therefore, what is important as far as the finances is concerned, no, for people to get in touch with their barangay, yung mga health centers nila, yung mga RESU, no, ng Department of Health. These are the facilities where they can go to, contact them, call them, so that they don't even have to go out of their homes, no, to be tested. So people will actually, the Department of Health, the barangay health centers will be the ones to ensure that the people at their homes will be tested. So parang hindi na sila mahirapan. Or kung hindi naman kayang pumunta ng mga health personnel, no, the mga technicians, yung mga medtechs, to the homes of the individual, then this individual will actually be picked up, no, by the transportation nung LGUs and bring the people to the laboratories. So yun yung isa sa mga nakikita kong driver, no, for testing. So those people who are exposed, and then of course the other one will actually be those who have to travel out of the country. Now, unfortunately for us here, we're not looking into having a test done when we want to travel from one region to another, no? Hindi na natin masyadong nire-require yan. But I think that it is best that when you travel, because really by air, medyo mahirap, no? Particularly, nakita nyo na ba ngayon yung situation inside the airplane? Talagang halos wala nang walang
Punong-puno na. Yes.
wala nang physical distancing, and then all the people, no, pag
That's true.
bibigyan ng pagkain, all the people are actually eating, no, parang wala nang virus. So pag ganun ang behavior ng tao, I think we need to ensure that all the people who will be flying will be RT-PCR negative, para sigurado natin na kahit mag-ano man siya, alis man siya ng mask niya, hindi siya makakahawa.
Okay. Dr. Maricar Limpin and Dr. Ronjin Solante, maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Sino po.
Doctor.
Thank
Ingat
you,
po.
docs.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
We will take a break. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back.
Welcome back to Chiefs here on One News. We continue our conversation, and now joining us is Dr. Ana Ong Lim of the DOH Technical Advisory Group and Dr. Maria Consorcia Lim Quizon, or Doc Conky, of the COVID-19 National Immunization and Technical Advisory Group, or NITAG na lang. Sige, good evening, doctors, and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Good evening, doctors.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening pa.
Opo. Well, just the other week po, we shortened already the intervals between the primary dose and the booster shots. However, the last time I checked with the DOH website, parang nasa 1+ million pa lang ang nagpapa-booster. I'm wondering if you see a sense of urgency from people to get their booster shots, considering na you have Omicron already on the horizon. Do you see that sense of urgency among the public?
Hala, hindi namin alam kung sino mauna sasagot.
Doc Congy, sige, Doc Congy. Total, kayo nauna sumagot eh.
Nagbibigay.
Kung sino po yung mas excited.
Lagi ako excited. Anyway, kasi, Christmas season eh. So many people, and I've talked to a lot, albeit anecdotal, karamihan sa kanila is like, teka, palampasin naman namin itong Pasko at kasi mga 2-3 araw na plaplakda because of the booster. So, but I think many people would like to get boosted. And in fact, even before it was shortened to 3 months, nung sinabi 6 months, ang daming, pardon the expression, atat na sabi, paano kami na dapat uwi na kami ng Pasko? So meron naman na excited na magkaroon ng third dose. So I think tataas pa yan before before winter comes.
Winter.
Winter is coming, di ba?
Doc Ana, kayo po.
Pero Doc, sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
Well, I was just gonna say, I'm hearing the same things as Dr. Raconki mentioned. No? There's a certain segment of the population that's really eager to be boosted, and in fact, minsan tayo pa nga ang umaawat sa kanila eh, di ba? Parang sandali lang, wala pang recommendation, antayin naman natin para naman klaro. So now that the recommendations here, they're eager to get boosted. Yung mga iba, they've gone ahead and taken the booster doses, but I think significant talaga yung consideration na holiday season to, may mga plano, and people anticipate that they're going to react to any vaccine, and just want to be careful.
I was gonna ask nga but despite the fact that there are many people who want to get boosted, no, the level of hesitancy is still pretty much, high. Let's just put it that way, no? The fact that we haven't really gone beyond 45% ba na vaccination, no? Wala pa tayo ng immunity na gusto natin targeting. Bakit po kaya? What do you think is, because now supply is not an issue, but how come people are still not responding to the call to be vaccinated?
Well,
Doc
ako,
Homke.
yeah. Well, ito nakuha ko sa mga pasyente dito sa probinsya and I tend to believe them. Culturally kasi, lalo na yung age range na gusto natin bakunahan, noong mga nakaraan, yung mga nanay nila at sila mismo hindi na bakunahan all their lives. So it's so hard for them to accept yung kultura ng pagbabakuna. Just to let you know, itong ating expanded program on immunization, itong childhood diseases, it took 10 to 15 years bago maging matter of course sa mga nanay na dalhin nila ang mga anak nila for pagbabakuna. E di lalo na dito sa mga may edad na sa tanang buhay nila, hindi sila nabakunahan tapos ngayon pagpipilitan natin. So, eto, may mentalidad na ganon, lalo na dito nasa probinsya ako. So, yun ang naririnig ko. Kaya kuminsan kahit anong paliwanag mo on the science side, ang hirap. Because you are going against kung ano yung nakalakan nila o yung culturally acceptable sa kanila.
Pero Dr. Ong Lim, you're in pediatrics. Siyempre, nag-aalala din yung mga tao. Lalo ngayon, we have approved vaccination for ages 5, as young as 5. Mukhang konti pa yung information about it, di ba? Even worldwide. Anong tingin nyo doon? Are you fully in support of it o meron kayo words of caution kung sakasakali man na nandyan na nga yung mga vaccine for the 5 years old and up to 11?
So siguro, Ami, let me just expand on that topic of the 5 to 11 a little bit further. No? So the EUA did come out, and then that's within the time frame based on the application of the manufacturer. Pero in terms of operationalizing it, hindi siya mangyayari kasi unang-una, iba yung formulation. So wag po tayong magkakamali, no? For the viewers, wag po tayong magkakamali mo dalhin yung mga bata at baka mabakunahan sila by mistake kasi hindi dapat yung formulation na ginagamit yung for adults ang gagamitin for the kids. No? Ibang-iba po yun. And then, pangalawa, syempre yung peripherals, yung mga appropriate supplies, kailangan pa rin natin ihanda. So, wala pa talaga sigurong mangyayaring bakunahan ng 5 to 11 years old. Pero nakikita rin natin globally na dun sa mga bansang nakapag-achieve na ng significant levels of coverage, yung mga bata na ngayon ang medyo apektado. Kasi sila na lang halos yung hindi bakunado. So, I think that will be a very big consideration when the time comes that vaccines are available for the younger population. Kasi if we want to be able to move forward with respect to the better normal that everybody's aiming for, kids need to be part of the equation.
Doc Ana, kanina I didn't really quite know what to make of it nung nabasa ko to sa Philippine Star. But the DOH is saying they will continue posting the numbers on the website, the daily case reports, but they will stop issuing bulletins to the public, particularly sa social media. Essentially, kung gusto niyo malaman, nasa website naman, no? And of course, other people are also posting this on social media. But I don't know if, as a member of the DOH Technical Advisory Group, you necessarily have input on this particular matter. But what's the thinking there, and what might be the advantages as well as the disadvantages to that decision?
Well, this was something that the DOH team decided, no? And of course, we were informed when that decision was made. I think the idea here is that we really have to start shifting mindsets a bit in terms of a focus on focusing away from the numbers, but maintaining an awareness, and also keeping the how would you put this, the perspective that people have to continue complying with the necessary standards. Parang iniisip ko tuloy, parang siguro isipin natin dengue. Hindi naman natin inaalam kung ilan ang kaso ng dengue sa bawat araw. Pero lahat tayo aware na ang dengue, importante siyang sakit, na pag tag-ulan, dapat nag-iingat, dapat meron tayong mga ginagawang mga measures to be able to avoid getting sick. So parang ganoon. Hindi natin tinatanggal yung halaga ng COVID and hindi natin sinasabi na hindi na dapat mag-ingat. Pero siguro yung focus, doon na tayo sa pag-iingat rather than araw-araw tinitignan natin o tumaas ng 5 kaso, tumaas ng 10 kaso, tumaas ng 20 cases.
Yes. But doesn't it go...
Pero hindi kaya ito maging signal.
Productive.
I mean, doesn't it go hand in hand, having a certain level of concern and awareness of the numbers, as well as heightening your response to the numbers? Because that's how we've behaved over the past 2 years. If there's anything that we've shown, even not just with COVID, but even with other diseases, di ba? Pagka tumataas, at a certain point, there is some virtue to panicking a little bit. There is some virtue to fear in incidents like this. And especially as we're waiting for Omicron, and we keep hearing, oh, Omicron, baka mas nakakahawa to, and so on. Isn't that precisely an awareness that you want to continue? And that has also proved its value over the past 2 years. And I guess the other question is, why now? Why now na we're precisely waiting to see what Omicron might bring?
Well, siguro I will have to agree. It has its value. But then on the other hand also, I think may panahon din or meron ding certain segment din na namamanhit. Kasi parang ang tataas ng numero, hindi mo na siya ma-conceptualize sa isip mo kung anong ibig sabihin. No? So, can go both ways. But in any case, the information is there. It's going to be available to the public. We just have to jump one extra hoop to be able to access it. Hindi na siya ganun kabilis. Kumbaga parang you'll have to know where to find it to be able to access the information. And I'm sure the appropriate numbers will still be highlighted when it's necessary. Sana hindi pa rin mawala yung halaga na binibigay ng mga tao dun sa numero or dun sa cases natin, even as we shift to this different kind of reporting paradigm.
Dr. Conky, where are we in
Sige.
Where are we in terms of, whether we can now ease the restrictions on gatherings that we expect to happen in the very near future? I'm talking about, katatapos lang itong Christmas shopping, where we saw crowds really converging in malls and in other places, and of course for reunions. But now we're looking at January, and the Nazareno festivities are coming up. And yun na nga, parang while yung sinabi nga ni Robby na sinasabi nga na ngayon ng gobyerno, there's no need to post the numbers to put out a bulletin, etc. Parang the signals seem to be crossed, no? People will tend to, let's just say, to bring their guards down, no? And they're gonna say, nag-crowding nga nung December, pero hindi naman nag-surge, no? Yun nga yung tanong ko how should we view the numbers now and as we move forward to yet another major gathering? I mean, let's expect that yung Nazareno.
Yeah.
Even ahead of a surge, which even if we hope that it's not going to happen, but it could.
Yeah. Well, the numbers that we have right now could well be the surge, the calm before the storm, right? And so that's, yun na nga, yung sinasabing, ano tayo ngayon, less than 500 a day? So people tend to say, wala na yan 500 na lang yan Mabuti kung pataas ng pataas, then they get scared. Pero where we are right now, which is good, as we are, that tends to have a negative effect in being complacent. Kaya siguro, sige, ibahin muna, hindi naman iniiba usapan, Pero ibahin natin yung focus kung saan tayo. Hence, yung wag muna sa numbers. But it's not as if the DOH is disallowing people to get the real data. You know, it's there. When you look for it, it's there. Okay, so that's one. Number two, regarding yung talagang big possible super spreader events, I don't know kung papayagan tayo ng ganon. Yun like yung sa Nazareno. I don't know. I mean, that's different from parties at home or reunions. Ibang level yun, yung ganon. So, parties at home, well, nakaraos tayo ngayong Pasko so far. Pero tingnan natin pagkatapos sa 1 linggo, 2 linggo, as what happened in the US after their Thanksgiving na nagkita-kita, ayan, nag-search na sila as expected. So tingnan natin kung ano ang mangyayari. Hopefully, and yung mga nagkita-kita, nag-observe pa rin ng minimum public health standards. Sana.
Doctors, with the threat posed by Omicron, yung ibang bansa, specifically Israel, are considering a 4th dose. Is there any discussion in our country to do the same? Saka, ano yung science behind that? Sound naman siya. Doc Ongki?
Ako muna. O sige, well, Israel yun. Israel yun. You know, Anna mentioned kanina na really it depends on the manufacturer. Sa kanila mauna, sila ang gumawa ng gamot eh. So, I mean the manufacturer. So sila ang re-request ng lisensya or for us to allow them to have a 4th dose kung needed. This is not an issue of feel ko lang. Sige nga, teka nga, makapag 4th dose. Hindi ganon. Mauna muna yung manufacturers at sila ang nakakaalam kung hanggang saan at kung anong dapat sa kanilang mga bakuna or gamot, so to speak. Anna, to you?
Well, most of the recommendations concerning additional doses are based on behavior of the antibody levels. Even as we continue to say that that cannot be the only basis. Kasi nga, we know that the immune system is not just dependent on antibodies for function. And then that very important detail that we're missing hasn't really been established, this concept of the correlate of protection, which is basically what level do you actually need? There's no single number or there are no indicative numbers even for that to try to target. So I think it's very early to start recommending a 4th dose, and particularly in our setting, no, as was mentioned earlier by Lucci, meron pa tayong significant segment ng population na hindi pa man lang natin nakocover ng 1st dose. So parang I think very critical, lalo sa ating population, tandaan natin, kahit na i-boost natin i-boost pa ng 6 o 5 doses yung mga nabakunahan na, kung di natin naaabutan ng 1st or 2nd dose, yung natitira, walang katapusan ito. Kailangan talagang maabot natin lahat, at least ng primary series.
Yeah. Pasingit lang ng isa, I'm wondering about the Israeli clinical trials for the 4th dose. Kasi what I read was that the trials for the 4th dose are for those who received their 3rd dose 4 months ago and who belong to the vulnerable sector. Parang ang iksi naman, kung for example tayo 3 months after the primary dose, saka tayo mag-booster, tapos yung mga Israelis, 4 months after the 3rd dose, saka sila mag-4th dose. Are we looking at diminishing returns of the vaccines?
If I can respond to that, that's precisely the thing, diba? Parang you're pointing out very important details that we need to focus on. First, it's a very select population, no? And second, this concept of shortened intervals impacting on the response. Kasi merong ibang mga bakuna na pag sobrang iiksi yung intervals between doses, instead of boosting, you get a hypo-responsiveness. So we don't know yet whether that's going to be a factor. But they're willing to look at it for this specific population kasi nga immunocompromised or poor immune response. So kung tutuusin, ito pa lang ang unang booster nila. Kumbaga parang they should have probably received a 3-dose series and this is their booster 1. So parang yung mga detalyeng ganun, that has to be examined very well so that we can understand what we're actually doing and differentiate the concept of third dose versus a booster dose.
Okay.
Okay. Dr. Ana Ong Lim and Dr. Kongki Quezon, maraming salamat po.
Docs, ingat po.
Thank you, Dr.
Ingat po.
Thank you for
Thank you,
joining us.
Docs.
Thank you.
Many of our kababayans in the provinces hit by Typhoon Odette have no food and they have no water. They've lost their homes. Many have lost loved ones. Let's make them feel the spirit of bayanihan. You can send donations through the accounts now being flashed on your screens. Let's make them feel that through this pandemic, through all the devastation, tuloy pa rin ang Pasko. And that will be all for this edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valles of News 5.
I'm Ed Lingao, and we are One News.